Hey guys, we are taking a look today at a PowerCon exclusive Masters of the Universe Club Grayskull figure. We're going to start things off with Chopper. This is the one that I was most interested in of the bunch. We've got him here in the brown mailer box. You can see we've got the He-Man logo, the figure name, and then the back of these boxes do say PowerCon exclusive. So we've got inside this box, we've got the standard slipcover for the Club Grayskull line. You can see the Jawbridge artwork, and then the back of the slipcover does have the He-Man logo. We've got Chopper there in the window inside the big open Jawbridge packaging, and then the back of this box features some classic Filmation style artwork along with a bio for our figure inside. So let's pull him out and take a look. Alright guys, here he is out of the box. We've got our Chopper figure, and quickly for the uninitiated, this guy is interesting in terms of naming and just the general Filmation aesthetic overall. So the whole point of these figures obviously is to mimic the cartoon. Chopper here appears in one episode, not very much in that episode. He's a very small background character. He hardly says anything. He doesn't really do much either. And he's never actually named. The only way we know that he's called Chopper is because that's what the Filmation series Bible calls him. The figure was being developed simultaneously, the vintage figure, and came out after his appearance in the cartoon and was named JITSU. And doesn't really look like this. He sort of does, but he's also distinctly different as well. So he is, you know, Chopper, but he also is JITSU, and he has a very minor part in the Filmation show. I'll do a comparison later on to the Classics figure so you can see just how different this design is to the vintage and, you know, 2000X style look. So let's take a look, of course, at Articulation first. We got to see how this guy moves around. And frankly, he moves around about as much as you would expect. There's nothing too crazy going on here. He does have one small area that he's hindered, and then there is a lack of an edge joint here as well. So we've got the head that swivels. He has a little bit of up and a little down, but he doesn't have much movement at the head. That's really the big limiting area. I think it's mostly because he has such a fat neck. It really just limits that articulation there. So he doesn't move too much in terms of the head. Arms go all the way out. They swivel. We've got a bicep swivel. We've got a single jointed elbow, and we've got hinge at the wrist and rotation. But on the big hand, the chopping hand, he only has rotation. There is no hinge in there. The waist does swivel. He has no crunch because it's a singular sculpted piece of armor, so he doesn't have a crunch at all, so you don't get any forward or backward movement. You can rotate at the thigh, legs go all the way out, they kick forward, they kick back. We have got a single jointed knee. We do have a boot cut or a shin swivel, and then we've got a rocker as well as a hinge down at the ankle. So, you know, he moves about as well as you would expect. We've seen other figures in the Filmation line that have the lack of the ab crunch, so that's nothing new. And then beyond that, the only other thing is, you know, they had to do something to make his hand that large, and we lost the hinge as a result of that. Now, as far as the overall look of this figure, I am overall very, very happy. I think they did a really solid job of kind of mimicking the Filmation style here. There's only one thing that I have a gripe with, and there's one area to point out that is definitely different. I don't think it's a problem, but it's something to note. So in general, this is a solid interpretation of the cartoon. I think it looks really good. Colors are nice and vibrant. I don't really have any QC issues to speak of, save for one thing, which again I'll talk about. But the big difference here for this particular figure and this character is that in the cartoon, he does not have pupils. He's obviously a stereotype of an Asian character. So they didn't give him pupils. They gave the figure, however, pupils. So it kind of makes him maybe not so much of a stereotype. I'm not sure that that's avoidable here. I mean, he's obviously an Asian guy. There's no way to get around it. So, you know, that's the only real difference. It doesn't really bother me. I'm not so sure it was really necessary, though. I don't know if people would have been offended by it or not. I can't say that. I can't speak to that. You know, it wouldn't have bothered me personally, but I can see that it might have been done to avoid that kind of a problem. Other than that, though, I think this is a pretty solid interpretation of Chopper or JITSU or whatever you want to call him. He is, for the most part, you know, pretty standard figure here. You've got just kind of a normal buck with a solid chest piece. Painting on the chest is really clean, nice and vibrant yellow. I'm not so sure if light is playing tricks on me or not. I've been trying to find out, but it looks like there might be some shading on his back. It sort of looks like that, but at times it sort of doesn't, and I've taken it in different rooms, and I kind of see it, and then I kind of don't. So I'm not too sure. The chest area, though, it looks pretty solid. We've got some, you know, sculpted boots and shin guards down here, and when we get down here, that's where I kind of have my problem, because we have, once again, we've got painted joints, and we've got the hinges at the ankle are painted the same color as the boots and the feet, and mine were chipping when they came out of the box. It is entirely unavoidable with painted joints. They are going to chip. It's a huge friction point. It's, you know, you really can't do anything about it except not paint them. So your mileage may vary on whether that bothers you or not. It doesn't really bother me, but it's definitely something that I have to point out. Beyond that, though, I mean, the main characteristic of this guy, outside of his, you know, vibrant red and yellow color scheme, and of course his rather unique head, especially for a Motu figure, Motu character, is of course the big giant hand. And I think it's sculpted pretty well. I mean, it's obviously the goofiest thing about this figure. It's got a lot of nice sculpted detail in it. It's oversized, to say the least. You can't do anything with it except give him a chopping position. That's basically what it's for. I prefer the, you know, the gold glove look of the vintage figure, of the classics figure, stuff like that. But this is true to the show, and I think they did a pretty good job of kind of, you know, plasticizing it, turning it from cartoon to plastic. So it looks pretty good. It does have detail on both the inside and the outside, so that's nice. And then he does have one accessory. We've got this really basic red, you know, katana sword. It's just done up in red plastic. There is no paint on it. It's not the same color as his outfit. I don't know if that's intended or not, but it's definitely not. It's a sword. He holds it in his left hand only, obviously. There's no way that's going in his right. And I'm not sure he really needs it, but I like the idea of having him with a sword and the chopping hand. And as I mentioned, here is, of course, our comparison between Filmation Chopper and Classics Jitsu. And you can see that while they, you know, they share the same design elements in terms of what they are, they've got similar color schemes. You know, Jitsu's obviously supposed to be some sort of Asian type character. He's got the chopping hand, he's got the sword. They are still very, very, very different in terms of overall design and the detail and everything about him. Even the vintage figure, it looks very different from the cartoon to plastic. So there you go, guys, a quick comparison between our two figures. So overall, I'm really happy with this figure. He is rather basic. I mean, that's the purview of this line, is that they're supposed to be basic. They're based on that cartoon, but even then, Chopper, Jitsu, whatever you want to call him, is rather basic compared to a lot of other figures. There's not a lot going on with this guy, but despite that, I think Super 7 and the Horsemen have done a really good job translating this design into plastic. He, interestingly enough, doesn't really have any of the problems that I have encountered with some other Filmation figures from Super 7 recently, outside of the fact that he has the painted joints issue, which isn't exactly unique to these figures at all. It's just a thing that they have. But I've had no other real QC issues with this guy, which is a nice thing to not have to deal with. So beyond that, I'm really happy with him. I think he looks good in plastic. He's a fun, different character. He might be very minor for the cartoon, but people really know this guy. We know who he is. We know what he means to Masters of the Universe. And of course, we're getting Fisto soon enough. And there you go. You're going to have your duo. So that's going to do it for this look at the PowerCon exclusive Chopper figure from Super 7. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And until next time.